aquarium keepers released beautiful lionfish into the Atlantic, expecting them to vanish harmlessly. Yet the fish multiplied and devoured the reefs instead. This is Unintended Consequences, Episode 81. In the summer of 1985, a single lionfish appeared off the coast of Florida. Its red and white stripes stood out against the reef. Within 2 decades, the same species had spread from North Carolina to the Yucatán. It ate its way through native fish populations that had never met such a predator. The fish arrived through ordinary channels of the aquarium trade. No one had set out to change the ocean. Lionfish from the Indo-Pacific entered the trade as display animals by the 1970s. Their dramatic fins and coloration made them striking additions to home tanks. Hobbyists and retailers treated them like other tropical fish. People bought them, kept them for a time, and released them when circumstances changed. In the 1980s, the trade operated with little regulation. Most participants assumed a few escaped or discarded fish would die in colder Atlantic waters or simply fail to reproduce. The intention stayed modest. People wanted attractive pets. Releases usually happened by accident or convenience rather than malice. Owners and sellers expected temperature barriers and unfamiliar food sources to act as natural checks. Similar imported species had never established outside captivity. Retailers focused on the immediate appeal of the fish. The market rewarded variety and visual impact. Containment protocols did not yet exist. By the mid-1980s, occasional sightings appeared along the southeastern United States coast. A larger pulse followed Hurricane Andrew in 1992. An aquarium facility in Miami suffered damage. Fish were presumed lost to Biscayne Bay. Throughout the decade, individual owners continued emptying tanks into coastal waters. The venomous fish had grown too large or aggressive for household care. Early observers noted the fish but saw no immediate cause for alarm. The prevailing view held that the subtropical Atlantic would remain unsuitable for an Indo-Pacific species. Releases occurred one tank at a time, often at night or during routine maintenance. The cumulative volume stayed invisible to regulators. Those regulators lacked jurisdiction over private aquaria and any monitoring system for marine ornamental species. Even when divers reported the distinctive striped form near popular sites, the sightings registered as isolated curiosities. Without predators or competitors that recognized the lionfish as prey, the population expanded rapidly. Females can release up to 2 million eggs per year. The larvae drift on currents that carried them throughout the Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico. On reefs where small fish had evolved no evasion tactics, lionfish consumed juveniles of snapper and grouper. In heavily invaded sites, they sometimes reduced local recruitment by more than 80%. The loss of herbivores allowed algae to overgrow corals already stressed by warming and disease. This created a second-order shift in reef structure. Recreational divers and commercial fishers watched once familiar habitats empty out. The striped intruders proliferated unchecked. Because the fish reproduce continuously and occupy a wide depth range, conventional removal efforts could not keep pace. Each mature female adds orders of magnitude more offspring than the handful of adults originally released. The larvae disperse farther than any single diver or net can reach. The continuous trickle of hobbyist releases supplied additional founders. Those founders kept genetic diversity high and establishment probability elevated. A third-order effect appeared in fisheries yields. Reduced juvenile survival translated into smaller adult stocks years later. Both commercial landings and the tourism economy built around healthy reefs felt the impact. By the early 2000s, regional agencies and NGOs began organizing lionfish derbies. Divers competed to collect the largest numbers of fish. Chefs in Florida and the Caribbean developed recipes that turned the venomous spines into a marketable seafood item. A modest commercial fishery emerged. These measures have slowed local densities in some heavily dived areas. Yet the overall range continues to expand northward along the United States East Coast during warmer years. No practical method has emerged for eradicating a self sustaining marine population once it spans thousands of kilometers of coastline. Even the derbies, while effective at removing hundreds of individuals per event, represent a labor intensive response. That response cannot match the reproductive output of the remaining adults. Each derby removes fish that have already survived to adulthood and leaves the larval cloud untouched. Attempts to promote lionfish as food have created niche markets. Those markets have not generated enough harvest pressure to drive populations below replacement levels across the invaded range. Any living organism that can reproduce and find food in a new setting carries the potential to become permanent once numbers exceed a low threshold. Small, repeated releases, each one seemingly trivial, accumulate into an invasion that later interventions can only manage rather than reverse. When evaluating the movement of plants or animals, whether for trade, ornament, or research, the relevant question is not whether a single individual will survive. The question is whether the species can establish a breeding population in the absence of its usual controls. The same logic applies today to proposals for moving species for aquaculture, biological control, or even assisted migration under climate change. The threshold for irreversible establishment is crossed long before the effects become visible to casual observers. And that's where today's story leaves us. If it changed how you see one everyday decision, that's the whole point. Pass it along to someone who'd appreciate it, and we'll be back tomorrow with another case. And if you'd rather watch than listen, find us on YouTube at Nara Network, links in the show notes. Quick tip from the network, try models and agents for beginners next. Artificial intelligence explained simply, for beginners and curious teens. Every Nara Network show is free at naranetwork.com. The age of AI puts real builders on the phone with an AI host. Apply at naranetwork.com, age of AI apply. This episode used AI voice synthesis of my voice. Editorial selection and analysis are my own.